Hello there. Okay, look, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And what I have to do is rank each of the Star Wars films from a hopefully pretty unique perspective, in that I'm not a fan of them. I don't really care about them. I don't have the nostalgia for them, except maybe Attack of the Clones, but even then, not really. So I'm a bit scared. I have some takes that are about as hot as Anakin's sweet burns. And to you, I may sound like a dumb and crazy person when you hear my order 66. But your eyes can deceive you, and it's okay because I have the high ground. And I will stand my ground on these opinions. But I have a bad feeling about this. I've been told by literally multiple friends that my opinions on these, my ranking, is triggering. So if you find yourself feeling that way, I request that you let go of your hate. Sit back, relax, smoke some death sticks, and blast off with me into this stupid far, far away galaxy. As we go through each film, and Kenobi as well, from worst to best. Okay, so first up, the worst of the worst, in my opinion, is Episode 1, Phantom of the Menace. Did I say that right? The Phantom Menace. Sorry. See, I'm not a Star Wars nerd. I'm just not. I'm a nerd in many other ways. Star Wars is just not one of them. Okay, anyway, so the Phantom Menace is kind of undeniably, I would say, the worst of the lot. I would be hard pressed to argue any other of the movies, except maybe the next two. But we'll get to that soon. But basically, The Phantom Menace is a movie that while I was watching it, I can't help but cringe, to be honest. It feels embarrassing watching it. I feel embarrassed for the people in it who made it. I feel embarrassed for myself sitting there watching it. I feel embarrassed for just every single thing about it. Almost feels embarrassing. You know, obviously the effects are outdated, okay? So when it comes to the technology at the time, maybe it's not fair to criticize it so harshly, but these movies, man, this one in particular, are so ugly. There's just not much about them that really that I can praise in that way, I would say. Look, are they absolutely unwatchable in terms of the effects and stuff? No, of course not. But there's a lot of obvious, green screen and really outdated bad CGI and everything like that. But that's not really why I think the movie is bad, to be fair. That stuff isn't favorable. But what I think makes this movie absolutely terrible is obviously the writing. Everybody already kind of knows George Lucas was surrounded by yes men, and the dialogue is not exactly his strong suit. I think it's fair to say. And you'll see that throughout the prequels especially, but I think in The Phantom Menace, when you also have a leading child actor, that doesn't help. And I also feel like overall, The Phantom Menace is really unnecessary to the rest of the story. Like, I feel like you can jump in at Attack of the Clones and pretty much understand what's going on from there. Phantom Menace is like, what? You learn that the dude who trained Obi-Wan Kenobi was Liam Neeson and died? Who cares? It just doesn't really, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, it just doesn't matter. For that reason, I think it is the worst of the lot. The one good thing about The Phantom Menace is Darth Maul, because he is just sick as fuck. There's no denying that. But I was absolutely terrified of that character when I was a kid. Literally walking past the posters made me cry. So for that reason, this is the worst of the lot as well. It's just not good, okay? And Jar Jar Binks, it's low-hanging fruit, but come on. Okay, next up at number 11 is Attack of the Clones. Yes, I'm being fairly harsh to the prequels. That's not exactly a hot take, at least in the past it wasn't. Nowadays, people have really turned around on them. Everybody that grew up with them grew up. And now they actually sort of like these movies, and they are sort of talked about fondly nowadays. But the thing is, a huge part of that to me, I think, is the memes. Something that I am more familiar with, the memes of Star Wars, even if I don't know the films as well. I definitely know the memes from the prequels in particular. And boy howdy, is Attack of the Clones full of these memes and everything. And that makes it a little bit more enjoyable than The Phantom Menace, in my opinion. But it's still not great. But I do have a hot take. I like Hayden Christensen as Anakin. I don't mind him. I get that he's cringe. I think we can all agree with that. But I actually do think he embodies sort of this angst and anger. I like watching the progression of him becoming slowly more and more evil across the two films, I enjoy that, okay? Sue me, shoot me, stab me, whatever. I kind of don't mind that. But episode 2 also has some of the funniest moments to me. And I don't mean the cliche ones that everybody else thinks are funny. I found some different moments funny, to be honest. Like, for example, how obviously evil Palpatine is. Like, how obvious it is that he's an evil guy, but everyone's like, oh yeah, this senator dude or whatever is like, great, love him. I also find it really funny, and this is kind of including Revenge of the Sith as well, but I also find it really funny, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, and I was actually kind of confused by it, but the way that I was reading these films was that Palpatine only wants Anakin to be like his mentee or whatever because he's a dumbass and he's easy to manipulate. Maybe I'm wrong about that, and it's really because Anakin's the chosen one or whatever, and he's super powerful and is the best fucking Jedi that you've ever seen, and blah blah blah. I don't care about that stuff. What I do care about is that Anakin is an idiot. He's an idiot, and I think that Palpatine only wants to like recruit him because he can control him very easily. What do you think about that? That's my headcanon. That's how I watch these movies. There's also a hilarious moment between Anakin and Padme where they are in like a field, just an open field, and basically Anakin is like, oh man, I wish there was just some really wise guy who is in charge of everything and just made everything great and everything was his decision and stuff. And Padme is like, kind of sounds like a dictatorship. And Anakin's just like, yeah, well, if it works, it works. And then they like roll around in the grass together. And it's so funny. It's so funny. Now, I'm not usually the kind of person who's all like, oh, it's so bad, it's good and whatever. I don't really usually give a shit about that kind of thing. I'm not that kind of movie watcher. I have seen The Room, but only once. It's not the kind of thing I will rewatch and laugh at and all that kind of stuff. I find that kind of boring, kind of pointless. But man, some of those scenes though, especially that one in the field and Attack of the Clones, just, oh man, they are pure comedy. Comedy gold, I would say. But yeah, I don't hate this movie. It has some cool stuff in it, I suppose. Like the whole like gladiator scene. It's kind of fun and stuff. And things like that. I don't know. It's a movie. Next up at number 10 comes Rise of Skywalker. When I first watched Rise of Skywalker, I was actually super invested in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. A little precursor for you for what's to come. But the thing about Rise of Skywalker is that it fucks everything up that came before it, and I fucking hate this movie. But while rewatching it this time in preparation for this video, I actually didn't hate it as much as last time. And I disgust myself for thinking that. It's horrible. The thing about Rise of Skywalker is that what I hated about it last time was that I absolutely hated that they took back everything, all of the brave decisions, I would say, that were made in The Last Jedi thanks to Rian Johnson. I know that's a hot take as well. Blah, blah, blah. Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars. No. My opinion, J.J. Abrams did. With this movie, one of the things that I loved about The Last Jedi was that they turn Rey into somebody who's not related to anybody else. She's just this person who made her own destiny. She becomes powerful because she chooses to, sort of. And I find that much more inspirational and interesting than if she was just, another Skywalker or Palpatine or whatever the fuck, Like, I just find that stuff so dumb. Everybody's related to everybody and it's all legacy shit. I don't care. And so I was like super invested when I found out that Rey was this powerful person, this powerful character, because she had the will, basically. She made it so. That's cool. And then Rise of Skywalker's like, nah, she's only powerful because she's a Palpatine. And I hate that. But she does still decide to go against that and become a Skywalker with no blood relation. She still chooses her destiny in that way, which is something I didn't really see last time I watched it. When I watched it this time, I'm like, so she still sort of makes a destiny despite her upbringing. That's okay, but it's not as good as if she was just a nobody to begin with, in my opinion. I also hate how they killed Kylo Ren right at the end, right as he redeems himself. The whole series, the whole trilogy was about him maybe going in that direction of redeeming himself and becoming a good guy, and maybe Rey going to the dark side, all that stuff. I was really invested in that, before the third film came out. I was like, oh my god, they're gonna swap or something. Like, they're totally gonna be on opposite ends by the end of this trilogy. How cool. Of course, that's not where it goes, and Kylo Ren just becomes Ben and redeems himself, kisses Rey, and immediately dies, and it's dumb. I don't know, man. It annoys me, especially since, in my opinion, Kylo Ren was easily the best character of this trilogy, the most interesting. I love how he is sort of just this kid who's in over his head a little bit. He's not this expert, but he's trying to prove himself. He's trying to be this tough guy, you know, basically in the wake of his father's reputation, which I find interesting as well. Not his father, his, you know what I mean, whatever the fuck, Darth Vader. I said that incorrectly, but just ignore it. But yeah, Rise of Skywalker has a whole bunch of issues as well in terms of it making not too much sense in terms of, oh, they have to go get this fucking thing here, it's a fetch quest and stuff. And then, I don't know, there's just a lot to it that just dumbs itself down. It becomes very, very like, it undoes everything that the last film did, and it just becomes the same old shit that we've always seen before. And I just think that it's a really lazy movie. I don't know, it's still entertaining, it still has great effects and all this stuff. I think all the actors do well and everything. It's well made. It's not terrible in every single way, but I just hate the decisions that it made so much, like intensely. I hate the decisions that it made, and I just really hate how much it contradicts The Last Jedi, which is a movie that I love, to be honest. Okay, next up, and this is probably also a hot take, at number 9 is Return of the Jedi. A lot of this movie is just, I don't know, boring to me, to be honest. I'm sorry. I don't think it's as good as the first two, obviously, in this ranking. And it's just the most forgettable one to me, if I'm being honest. It just, like, it doesn't hold up in terms of being this, like, fantastic climax to the trilogy, in my opinion. I like the stuff between, you know, Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and Palpatine and stuff. That stuff is really good, but the whole sort of side quest with Han and Leia, it feels completely pointless to me in this movie. Maybe that's a hot take. Anyway, I don't have much else to say about this one. So next up is number 8, The Empire Strikes Back. Okay, I know, the internet, everyone in the world thinks this is objectively the best one of the lot. Fair enough. Not to me, though. I'm so sorry. This may be triggering, and that's kind of funny to me, but something that I have to say about this movie is that, and it's very funny because it's a complete contradiction in terms of how I feel about The Last Jedi, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I hate how Luke is just in that swamp for like the entire fucking movie. He's not relevant to what's actually going on at all. I like what's going on with Han and what's his name? Lando. Got it. Sorry, I'm not a Star Wars nerd. I forget these things sometimes. I like what's going on with them in this movie, and I love the ending when it comes to him getting like frozen in that carbonite stuff or whatever it's called. I think that is like such a daring ending for a movie like this, which was essentially for kids like back then, and that's kind of cool. I just think that the whole Luke being trained thing is kind of a waste of the character. And I also retroactively hate that he goes on to leave early, not really finish the training, but then he's like a Jedi Master guy by the next film. I think it doesn't really, I don't know. I know things can happen off screen between films and that's fine, but it just feels like that's a huge step that probably should have been documented. You know what I mean? But anyway, whatever. I do love Yoda though, because he's just this like little smart-ass guy and he's funny. So that makes up for it, I suppose. Also, yes, it's very iconic at the ending. The, not Luke, no, I am your father. That whole thing, it's interesting. It's cool. That was definitely like something that would have been shocking back in the day. Of course, I already knew this twist before I ever saw the movie itself. So, you know, it never really hit me in the way that it was supposed to. But you know, that's sort of ingenious. I will say, I think that is legitimately ingenious. That's a really clever subversion of expectation. Next up at number 7 is Revenge of the Sith. Easily the best of the prequels in my opinion. I think it is really interesting watching Anakin really step into that level of the dark side, becoming Darth Vader and everything. I think it's actually really well done. That last fight at like the lava volcano place, I don't know, it's probably got a name, some sort of planet or whatever, but I don't know what it is. So I'll just say the volcano place. It's really well done. I think it's super like intense and heartbreaking. You know, these people who were like sort of brothers, you know, being at ends now with each other. There's something really sad about it, like the bond being broken between them. I think that is the most compelling stuff in maybe all of the Star Wars movies, to be honest. Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi's relationship is actually something that I really enjoy, despite not liking the prequels very much. I think that they are the best part of it, especially Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. He's great, and so that is great. Something else that I will say about Revenge of the Sith, again, is also that it has a brave ending. I love that it's just tragic. The whole thing, it's a total loss for the good guys. I think that is pretty brave for like this epic blockbuster thing to do. That's kind of cool, you know? And though you do know that's where it's going because these are prequels and we know, you know, by A New Hope that the Jedi are basically wiped out. And so we're aware that there's going to be some sort of a bad, tragic ending. But, you know, going into it, you're not exactly sure how it's going to pan out. And it's really interesting seeing it play out. And I think that is something really to appreciate. That is one of the best things in the Star Wars series is to me. The ending of Revenge of the Sith. Even when Darth Vader, when he first is Darth Vader, says no, and everybody thinks it's really funny. I didn't know the context of that. I knew the meme, I knew everyone thought it was funny, but when I was actually going into watching this film, and I'd seen it before, but I'd forgotten, you know. Anyway, when I rewatched it this time though, I'm like, fuck, he's doing that. That's his reaction because Padme died. And I'm like, that's really, really sad. I guess the best memes come from tragedy, as I've learned with Breaking Bad, but I don't know. It's legitimately sad. I don't even think it's funny in the context of the film. To be honest, I just feel bad for him. Next up at number 6 is Rogue One. Another hot take because other people would probably think this should be higher to the best of. To me, this is pure, exactly mid ground, number 6 of 12. This is the middle Star Wars film to me. Partly because, you know, I'm not connected to these characters. I don't really care about them. I don't know who they are all that well. I know that Andor has a TV show now, but I don't really care that much. I also find it kind of boring if I'm being honest. I do like that it fixes the whole Death Star thing, why it has a problem. What's the word? It has like a weakness built into it. I love that. That's really, really clever how they sort of made that make sense, you know, with Mads Mikkelsen and stuff being the one who designed this failsafe so that they could maybe eventually destroy the Death Star. That's clever. I also like that it's sort of like this movie where, again, we know the ending somewhat. We know that they succeed, but it subverts your expectations by having literally every single one of the team die at the end. And again, I love tragedy and all that sort of stuff, especially when it comes into these sort of blockbuster movies. I think it's brave. I think it's cool. I love that they all died, to be honest, even though I just complained that I didn't really know the characters that well. So am I sad when they die? Not as much as maybe other people are, as much as I should be, but I do find it to be brave. And I do think that it's cool how they become these heroic characters through their sacrifice. I think that that's sort of inspiring. I really like that. This is more important than their lives. I like that message. I also obviously really like that one scene that Darth Vader shows up in and fucks up a bunch of dudes in the hallway. It's just cool. That's cool. Cool and memorable and cool, and I will remember it. As for the rest of the movie, not that memorable in my opinion. Like, what happens during the first half of this movie? Can you tell me? Maybe you can, maybe you're a big Star Wars nerd, but to me, it's largely forgettable, you know, until they show up at that island thing to get the Death Star plans and everything. I don't know. I'm not that into it. Okay, next up at number 5 is Solo, a Star Wars story. This is a very light movie. It's just a fun movie. I don't feel deeply about it. I'm not like, oh, this is the best fucking thing ever. Obviously, it's not my number 1 and stuff, but I just mean even more than that. Like, this was never going to be the best Star Wars movie, just inherently for what it is. It's just a fun adventure, and that's about it. And I think it does a good job with that. I don't know. I like Woody Harrelson. I like whatever that guy's name is. I've forgotten. I'm so sorry, main guy who plays Solo. He has a weird name. Aldenreich or something? Who cares? I don't know. I like this movie. No, we didn't exactly need explaining as to why his name is Han Solo because he's alone. No, we don't need all of those sorts of little dumb explanations and stuff. And I do think that the movie would have been better off if Phil Lord and Chris Miller completed it and Ron Howard didn't take over. Probably would have been funnier. Probably would have been a bit snappier, faster and stuff, but more energetic. But I still like it, you know? I still like it quite a bit. And I guess that's about all that I have to say. I don't know. No hot takes here, I guess. Except for maybe how high it is in my ranking. Next up is A New Hope, episode 4, at number 4. And yeah, so this is the original. I'm sorry it's not my number 1. I'm sorry that Empire Strikes Back is also not my number 1. I don't love old movies. Maybe that makes me sound completely ignorant and stupid, but it's true. So I don't know what you want me to say. But this was easily the best of the original trilogy in my opinion. I think that it is the most entertaining. It's the most simple as well, I will say. Like, it's very like A to B, good guys versus bad guys, that sort of thing. And so with that being said, it's not like the most compelling story ever, but you know, the hero's journey and stuff, it's a classic. It's fun watching Luke Skywalker make his way to becoming more of a hero. No, he doesn't become the ultimate Jedi by the end or anything, but I like watching this character grow up a little bit, and Han Solo is definitely a very likable character, and just everyone's great. All the characters are great and iconic, I will say. I do think that there is great characterization. They're all obviously like recognizable. We know their traits very well, all that stuff. This movie does a really good job of depicting these unestablished things, and, you know, is obviously a marvel when it comes to world building. Like, there is a lot packed into this film that everybody knows now. Even not being that big of a Star Wars fan, we know the terms when it comes to all the sort of things when it comes to the world of Star Wars. Like, it is possibly the most iconic thing in all of cinema, to be honest. And that's all thanks to George Lucas and this original film. There's a lot to be said here in terms of praise. It's not my favorite movie. It's never gonna be. Never has been. I find it drags a bit. I find it, you know, it's kind of slow. It's kind of like, it's very outdated in its storytelling. That fight between Darth Vader and Kenobi at the end is definitely dated in terms of, like, you know, the choreography and everything. It's very like not modern, I will say, which does kind of fuck up the prequels, by the way, and I find that kind of funny because, you know, by the time you get to the prequels and everything, everybody's flipping around and shit, and like the lightsaber fights are insane, but when it comes to, you know, the original one here, it's like the slowest, most boring fucking lightsaber fight in the entire series, and it's a little bit funny, but it's also iconic. It's also a classic. I don't want to like talk too much shit about it, even though I've talked a bunch of shit about Star Wars in this video already. I think that this one is something to appreciate. Then coming in at number 3 is the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I like it. I like it quite a bit. Is it the best? Nope. No Star Wars is really the best, in my opinion. I don't care about him that much. But to me, the Kenobi show was just kind of, I guess, nostalgic. You know, going back to Ewan McGregor's version of Kenobi is something that I was excited to see, I suppose. It's the only Star Wars series on Disney Plus that I've actually gotten through, so I don't really like The Mandalorian all that much. I've only watched a few. I haven't seen any of Boba Fett, haven't seen any of Andor, haven't seen any of Ahsoka. I don't care about them, but I did care about Kenobi. I think that it's pretty cool. I have nothing else to say about it. And now for maybe the hottest takes of them all, it comes my first top 2 picks, which are the Disney ones, the new ones, except for Rise of Skywalker. And coming in at number 2 is The Force Awakens. I think that there is something magical about this film. It's eternally rewatchable to me. I love this movie, to be honest. It's the first Star Wars movie that I liked or loved or anything. It's the first movie that really made me appreciate what Star Wars could be. I never really cared about Star Wars before that, as I've sort of already explained. But come 2015 with The Force Awakens, I was finally like, I kind of get it now, a little bit. Again, this isn't my favorite movie of all time, not even close. Probably doesn't even make it into my top 100. But, you know, maybe makes it into my top 150. And yeah, with this movie, I just think that they established fantastic characters. Kylo Ren, again, I think he's one of the best characters of the entire series, to be honest. I think Rey is also a fantastic character. I really like her hero's journey as well. It's basically the same thing. And I just think that there's a lot here that's very entertaining. I don't know. There's something about it that felt nostalgic from the very moment that I watched it, despite not being that big of a Star Wars fan. To me, it felt like it was iconic from the get-go. And I know a bunch of people hate this movie for some reason. I guess maybe because it's a retread of what came before it, or because it has a woman in it. I'm not really sure. Actually, I don't know why people hate this movie. And that fight between Rey and Kylo Ren in the woods at night, in the snow and everything, oh my god, that is cinema. And then coming in at number 1, The Last Jedi. No, this is not a joke. No, I'm not trolling you. This is my real opinion. When people hate The Last Jedi, when they say they hate The Last Jedi, all credibility is gone. And you're probably feeling that way, me saying I like it. But how do you dislike this one? It's the best one. I'm sorry. It's the best one. I love that they kill Snoke in the middle of the movie. He's built up to be the big bad that we're all so fucking scared of and whatever in The Force Awakens. And Rian Johnson is just like, nah, who cares? I love that. I love it so much. I think the whole Kylo Ren saying like, let the past die and everything is a very interesting sort of mantra for this movie. Let go of what came before it. We're in this new era, you know, where things are done a little bit differently. What I love about The Last Jedi is that it subverts expectations. No, that doesn't make a movie good by definition, but the thing that it does do is it turns Rey into somebody who chooses her own destiny. I already talked about this. It turns Kylo Ren into maybe this redeeming character. We start to see his redemption arc, which I'm always very invested by. And I just think that there's a lot to this film that is really clever. I don't understand everybody's complaints when it comes to the casino planet and that whole side quest thing. They complain about it like it's pointless, as if Star Wars has never done that before. Gone on some random side quest to do some random galaxy bullshit. That's kind of what Star Wars fucking is, man. I don't understand that complaint in any way. Is that not what the Ewoks also are? Are they necessary to the plot? I don't get the complaint. It's a total contradiction in my opinion. As is the complaint that I had, to be fair, when it comes to Empire Strikes Back and Luke being on that swamp planet training the entire time, because Rey is training the entire time in this film and fucked off apart from all the other characters. So that's a complete contradiction, and I will own that, and that's fine. One of the other aspects to this film that I find interesting is the whole Holdo versus Poe thing, the maneuver thing. I do find it a bit dumb that she doesn't just tell everybody what the plan is, but I don't know, I like seeing him sort of rebel and overthrow or attempt to. I like that part. Okay. I do have some complaints. I don't think this is a perfect film, okay? Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Star Wars, so even my top pick, I have issues with. Okay? Primarily, I have two issues, and that is how it deals with its legacy characters, which is funny because I'm not as invested as other people are with the legacy characters. One thing I will say is that I don't hate what they do with Luke Skywalker. What? So he's complicated. So he has regrets. He's not the light guy that we saw in the original trilogy. He did some bad, you know? And now he's cast himself away. I find that interesting. He's not just the hero in this film. He's not just like, oh yeah, he's the good guy and he's the best. There's actually some complexity to him. So I like that. But I do have issues with Luke, primarily in his death at the end, where he basically just like does the Force so hard that it kills him, I guess. It feels like there's not really any logic to it. They just decide, oh yeah, he's dead now. I don't know. He does the whole apparition sort of hologram thing, and that's kind of fun, you know, it's sort of a twist. But then the fact that it kills him is just stupid, in my opinion. Especially when it comes to the fact that, okay, basically, what happened at the end of this movie is Luke Skywalker looks like he's ready to sacrifice himself for the greater good, right? And it's like he's facing off against Kylo Ren alone, okay? So everybody else can escape. And it's like, okay, cool. I get it. He's sacrificing himself. How heroic. How cool. And then it twists and turns out that he was like the hologram thing, right? And okay, cool, fine. Then he can live. Sick, whatever. But then he dies anyway. So why didn't he just physically fucking go there and die anyway? I find that so stupid, personally. And the other complaint I have about The Last Jedi is that Leia, you know, doesn't die. She flies into space in this perfect opportunity to kill the character off after Carrie Fisher has died, and they decide, nah, we're gonna make her survive and fuck ourselves up for the next film. It makes no sense. The actor died. They killed off the alive actor's character and they kept in the dead actor's character. Make that make sense. I don't understand that decision. But apart from that, I think The Last Jedi is a fantastic film in just about every single way, apart from pretty much those two key things. The Last Jedi is by far, to be honest, my favorite Star Wars film. The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi are pretty on par for me for being the best of the bunch. I'm so sorry that that is a hot take. I'm so sorry that that may have pissed some people off. My real opinion though, I'm not trolling you. These are my real opinions. Again, Maybe I'm just not that much of a Star Wars fan, so I'm not that invested in things that other people are, and that's where my differing opinions come from. I think that's definitely the case. That's all that I really have to say. Thank you for watching. Tell me why you think I'm wrong, and do the things before you go, which are like, comment, share, subscribe, all that shit. And I'm outie. Goodbye.